The sky was overcast and a cold wind swept through the cemetery, carrying with it a silence that felt almost sacred. Rows of gravestones stood like soldiers, marking lives that had passed, some ordinary, some extraordinary. On this particular day, a small crowd gathered, their faces somber and heavy with grief. The sound of footsteps on the gravel path was muted by the damp earth beneath. Among the attendees, there were family members, friends, and a few fellow soldiers who had served alongside the man being laid to rest. But what drew the most attention was a dog, a large, muscular canine with deep brown eyes that seemed to reflect both loyalty and sorrow. The dog had been a constant companion to the veteran throughout his years of service. They had faced dangers together, shared quiet moments, and had formed a bond that went beyond words. Today, the dog sat quietly beside the coffin, its posture rigid, ears alert, and tail still. Those watching could see the tension in its body, a tension that mirrored the grief in the hearts of the humans around it. People whispered to one another, curious about the dog's behavior. Some thought it was just nervous in the crowd, while others felt a strange, unspoken understanding that this animal was aware of the weight of the moment in a way that was hard to describe. The coffin rested at the front of the small clearing, polished wood gleaming faintly under the gray sky. Flowers were placed carefully around it, their colors muted in the soft light. The priest stood nearby holding a small book of prayers, and his voice was calm, but carried the tremor of emotion he tried to hide. He began the ceremony, speaking of the veteran's life, his bravery, and his devotion to his country. Each word hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and the attendees listened intently, some bowing their heads, others wiping away tears they tried to hide. As the priest spoke, the dog remained still, eyes fixed on the coffin. Then, without warning, it let out a long, mournful howl. The sound cut through the quiet, drawing the attention of everyone present. Some jumped slightly, startled by the intensity of it, while others froze, their eyes widening in surprise. The howl was not the sound of a simple animal reacting to noise or crowd. It was raw, filled with emotion, and seemed to echo the sorrow in the hearts of everyone gathered. People exchanged glances, some whispering questions, others simply watching in silence. The dog continued to howl, its voice trembling yet steady, as if communicating something that words could not capture. The young soldier standing near the back of the crowd felt a lump in his throat. He had served alongside the veteran in dangerous places, seen him face situations that would terrify most people, and had always admired his courage and calm under pressure. He had never seen him without his K9 partner by his side. The bond between them had always been strong, but seeing the dog express its grief so openly was something entirely new. The soldier felt a strange mixture of sadness and awe. He had known the veteran to be brave and composed, but this display of mourning by the dog reminded him of the deep, unspoken connection they had shared. As the ceremony continued, the priest paused, clearly unsettled by the dog's behavior. He had performed countless funerals, seen grief in many forms, but there was something about this dog's howl that went beyond ordinary sorrow. It was almost as if the dog understood that the veteran's spirit was leaving the world and wanted to honor it in its own way. The priest struggled to maintain his composure, his hands tightening around the small book of prayers. He continued speaking, but his voice wavered, betraying the impact of the moment. The crowd remained silent, each person feeling the gravity of the scene in their own way. The dog eventually stopped howling and lowered its head, its eyes still fixed on the coffin. It was a gesture of respect, a final acknowledgement of the life of its companion. Some people in the crowd reached out instinctively, wanting to comfort the dog, but a subtle understanding held them back. They realized that this was a moment the dog needed to experience in its own way, a private expression of loyalty and grief that transcended human understanding. The young soldier took a deep breath, his heart heavy but filled with a strange sense of connection. He had witnessed many acts of courage and sacrifice, but this display of loyalty touched him on a level he had never anticipated. Family members stepped forward one by one, placing their hands on the coffin, saying their goodbyes, and whispering memories of the veteran. Each gesture was met with the dog watching silently, its presence a constant reminder of the bond that had defined the veteran's life. The soldier observed quietly, noticing the way the dog's ears twitched at every sound, every voice, every rustle of movement. It was as if the animal was taking in every detail, committing them to memory, or perhaps ensuring that nothing was overlooked in this final farewell. The ceremony drew to a close with a final prayer. The priest's voice, though steadier now, carried a depth of emotion that resonated with everyone present. The dog remained beside the coffin until the very end, not moving, not distracted, fully engaged in the moment. When the coffin was lowered into the ground, the dog let out a soft whine, a sound that was almost human in its sorrow. Some people reached out to touch it, offering comfort, but the dog only allowed a brief pat on its head before resuming its quiet vigil. After the last words were spoken, and the final shovels of earth were placed on the coffin, the attendees began to leave one by one, each carrying a piece of the day's emotions with them. The young soldier lingered, unable to leave immediately. He knelt beside the dog, whispering a quiet thank you for its unwavering loyalty. The dog looked up at him, eyes filled with a mixture of grief and understanding, and nudged his hand gently with its nose. In that simple gesture, the soldier felt a profound connection, a bridge between the human and animal experiences of loss and love. The wind blew gently, rustling the leaves on the trees surrounding the cemetery. The dog remained by the grave for a long time, sitting quietly, sometimes glancing at the sky, sometimes laying its head on the grass. The young soldier finally stood, realizing that the dog's presence had taught him something he could not put into words. Loyalty, love, and grief were not confined to humans alone. They were universal, transcending species, and in this moment, the soldier understood the depth of the bond between the veteran and his canine partner. As the sun began to dip behind the clouds, casting long shadows across the cemetery, the young soldier took one last look at the dog in the grave. He knew this memory would stay with him forever. The howl that had pierced the silence, the unwavering gaze, and the quiet dignity of a loyal companion paying final respects. It was a moment of pure human and animal connection, a reminder that love and loyalty endure, even in the face of death. The soldier turned to leave, carrying with him a lesson in courage, loyalty, and the invisible threads that bind hearts together, human or animal. The dog remained, a silent guardian of memory and love, its presence a living testament to a bond that would never be broken. The young soldier walked away from the cemetery feeling a mix of sorrow and confusion. He could not stop thinking about the dog and the way it had howled at the coffin. It had been more than just a reaction to loss. There had been something almost human in its grief, a depth that was hard to understand. He kept replaying the moment in his mind, trying to make sense of it. As he walked, he remembered the veteran he had served with, the countless missions they had shared, and the quiet moments when the veteran would sit with his canine companion, giving it gentle pats or speaking softly to it. He realized that the bond between them had been extraordinary, and now seeing the dog's reaction, it was clear that the bond had not ended with the veteran's passing. Later that day, the young soldier went to speak with the priest who had led the funeral. He needed answers, or at least some understanding of what he had witnessed. The priest was in his small office at the church arranging his notes, but he looked up as the soldier entered. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes, perhaps because he recognized the soldier's seriousness. The soldier asked quietly why the dog had howled so strongly, why it had seemed to react in a way that went beyond normal grief. The priest paused, looking down at his hands, and then slowly spoke. He admitted that he did not fully understand it himself, and that it was not something he had ever seen before. There was a pause as he searched for the right words, his voice low and deliberate. He explained that animals, especially those with deep bonds to humans, can sometimes sense things that people cannot. They feel emotions, anticipate dangers, and sometimes react to moments in ways that seem almost mystical. The soldier listened carefully, intrigued but still unsure. The priest continued, sharing memories he had heard from family and friends about the veteran and his canine. They had been inseparable, from training exercises to actual missions in dangerous zones. The dog had saved the veteran more than once, alerting him to dangers that he could not have seen. And the veteran had always cared for the dog, making sure it was fed, healthy, and safe, even in moments when his own life was at risk. The priest spoke of loyalty, of a connection that was forged in trust and courage. The soldier nodded, beginning to understand the depth of what he had witnessed. He realized that the dog's howl was not random or simply a reaction to the funeral. It was an expression of a lifetime of shared experiences, of gratitude, and of sorrow at a bond that could not be broken even by death. In the following days, the soldier found himself thinking about the dog constantly. He remembered seeing it pacing in the room days before the veteran had passed, its movements anxious and its eyes restless. It had refused to eat, and at times it seemed to stare at corners of the room as if it sensed something invisible. The soldier had thought at the time that the dog was stressed or confused, but now he wondered if it had known. Perhaps it had sensed the veteran's time was near and had prepared in its own way for the final moments. The thought both comforted and unsettled him. There was something in the dog's behavior that transcended ordinary understanding. It was almost as if the dog had been trying to say goodbye, to recognize the end of a life that had meant so much to it. The soldier decided to visit the veteran's home, a modest place filled with memories of a long and adventurous life. As he entered, he noticed the quiet corners where the dog had often rested, the worn toys scattered across the floor, and the veteran's belongings carefully arranged in their places. The dog was still grieving, its eyes sad, and it looked at the soldier with a mix of curiosity and hesitation. The soldier approached slowly, speaking softly, and the dog relaxed slightly, allowing him to sit beside it. They stayed like that for a long while, the dog's head resting on the soldier's knee, the room filled with silence that was heavy but comforting. The soldier realized that this was a moment of shared mourning, a way for both of them to begin processing the loss. As days turned into weeks, the soldier spent more time with the dog. They would walk together, sometimes in the nearby park, sometimes through quiet streets, and the dog seemed to guide him, leading him to places that had been important to the veteran. The soldier began to see patterns in the dog's behavior, little reminders of the veteran's life. At one spot in the park, the dog would stop and sit, looking intently at a particular tree. The soldier looked around and noticed a small plaque on the tree, marking a place where the veteran had often rested during breaks in training or during moments of reflection. At another time, the dog would return to a quiet bench near the veteran's home, sitting patiently as if waiting for someone who would never come back. The soldier realized that the dog was carrying memories, preserving the veteran's presence in its actions and choices. One evening, the soldier sat with the dog by the fireplace. The room was quiet, the only sound the crackling of the fire and the occasional shifting of the dog. He began to talk to the dog, recounting stories of missions they had shared with the veteran, the challenges they had faced, and the moments of laughter and camaraderie that had defined their service. The dog listened attentively, occasionally lifting its head or nudging his hand with its nose. It was as if the dog understood every word, absorbing the memories and the emotions attached to them. The soldier felt a deep sense of connection, realizing that the dog was not just grieving, but also helping him remember, helping him honor the veteran in a way that was personal and profound. The community began to notice the bond forming between the soldier and the dog. Neighbors, friends, and fellow soldiers saw them walking together, spending time in quiet reflection and supporting each other in grief. People would comment on the dog's intelligence and emotional depth, often amazed at how it seemed to understand the feelings of those around it. The soldier, too, began to feel a responsibility, not just for the dog's well-being, but for preserving the memory of the veteran. He started keeping a journal of the dog's behavior, noting moments that seemed significant, and reflecting on the lessons he was learning from both the dog and the veteran's life. As the weeks passed, the soldier discovered that grief could take many forms, and that it could be shared across species. The dog's mourning was not only a reflection of loss but also a teaching moment, showing the soldier the depth of loyalty, courage, and connection. He realized that the veteran's life had left a mark not just on humans, but on the living being who had shared it most closely. The dog, in its own silent and powerful way, was keeping the veteran's spirit alive, reminding everyone that love and devotion do not end with death. The soldier continued to visit the dog regularly, each time feeling a sense of peace mixed with lingering sadness. He knew that the journey of mourning would take time, and that the bond between the veteran and his canine companion was something rare and extraordinary. Sitting together, walking together, and sharing memories became a way to honor that bond, a way to ensure that the lessons of loyalty, courage, and compassion were not forgotten. The dog had become more than a companion. It had become a teacher, a guide, and a living reminder of the veteran's extraordinary life. In the quiet moments, the soldier often thought about the howl at the funeral. It was a sound that had pierced the stillness, reaching into the hearts of all who had heard it. Now, as he sat with the dog, he understood it better. not just as a cry of grief but as a powerful expression of recognition, respect, and farewell. The dog's howl had spoken volumes about the bond they shared, about the love and loyalty that could transcend words, and about the invisible threads that connect lives, both human and animal. The soldier knew he would carry this understanding with him forever, honoring the veteran's memory and the remarkable K9 who had mourned him with such raw and unspoken depth. The days after the funeral were quiet but heavy with emotion. The young soldier continued to spend time with the dog, who seemed to be slowly adjusting to the absence of its companion. The dog would sometimes sit by the window, staring at the empty street as if expecting the veteran to return. Its body language was tense at times, its ears alert and eyes searching. The soldier realized that the grief the dog carried was not something that could simply fade with time. It was rooted in experiences that went far beyond ordinary companionship. He began to understand that the veteran and the K9 had shared a connection that was almost unexplainable, something that transcended the physical and touched the emotional core of both lives. One afternoon, the soldier decided to visit the veteran's old training grounds. It was a place full of memories, where the veteran had spent hours teaching the dog, practicing drills, and preparing for missions. The dog, as soon as it arrived, recognized the place. Its tail stiffened and it began to walk with purpose, sniffing the ground, following familiar paths, and occasionally looking back at the soldier as if to ensure he was keeping up. It was clear that the dog remembered every corner, every scent, and every sound. The soldier felt a mixture of awe and sadness, realizing that these memories were etched into the dog's mind just as deeply as they were in his own. As they walked, the soldier noticed that the dog would pause at certain spots, sit, and look around intently. At one location near a grove of trees, the dog suddenly growled softly, a sound of warning but not directed at the soldier. It seemed to sense something invisible, some presence that the human could not see. The soldier followed the dog's gaze and saw nothing unusual, yet he felt a shiver run down his spine. He began to wonder if the dog's senses were attuned to things humans could not perceive. Could it be that the K9 was reacting to memories of the veteran, or even something beyond the physical world? The soldier did not have answers, but he felt the weight of the moment and the depth of the dog's perception. That evening, the soldier and the dog returned to the veteran's home. The dog moved slowly, its head lowered, occasionally pausing to rest in familiar spots around the house. The soldier watched as the dog circled the living room, finally lying down on the mat near the fireplace. The soldier sat nearby, speaking softly, recounting stories of missions they had shared with the veteran. The dog listened, lifting its head at certain points, and nudged the soldier's hand when it seemed to understand the importance of a memory. The soldier realized that these moments were teaching him something profound, that grief, love, and loyalty were not limited to humans. The dog's presence was a bridge to understanding the veteran's life and the bond they had shared. Over the next few days, the soldier learned more about the dog's behavior. It had been uneasy in the days before the veteran's death, refusing to eat and pacing constantly. At night, it would sit by the bedroom door listening, and at times it seemed to whine softly as if sensing the veteran's pain. The soldier reflected on these behaviors, realizing that the dog had been aware in its own way that something significant was about to happen. The howl at the funeral was not the first indication of the dog's deep awareness. It was the culmination of days of quiet preparation, a final act of farewell. The soldier could see that the dog's grief was more than sorrow. It was an acknowledgement of a life, a recognition of loss, and an expression of loyalty that transcended words. The priest, too, reached out to the soldier, wanting to discuss the dog's behavior. He admitted that he had been shaken by the howl at the funeral. It was not just a reaction to death. It was something more, something he could not fully explain. He spoke of the veteran's life, the courage he had shown, and the extraordinary bond he had shared with his K9. The soldier and the priest began to share memories and stories, each adding to the picture of a life filled with bravery, loyalty, and quiet heroism. The priest confessed that he had always believed animals were limited in their emotional depth, but witnessing the K9's reaction challenged everything he thought he knew. The soldier nodded, feeling a sense of connection with the priest, as if they were both trying to understand the same mystery. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, the soldier sat on the porch with the dog. The air was cool and the world seemed to hold its breath. The dog rested its head on the soldier's knee, eyes soft but watchful. The soldier spoke quietly, recounting moments of bravery, the laughter, the quiet times, and even the struggles they had faced with the veteran. The dog lifted its head at times as if confirming the memories, and sometimes nudged the soldier's hand, a gentle reminder that it was listening, remembering, and honoring the veteran in its own way. The soldier realized that the canine was not just mourning. It was preserving the memory of the veteran, carrying it forward and helping others understand the depth of the bond they had shared. The community around them began to notice subtle changes in the dog. People who had known the veteran commented on how the dog seemed to embody his spirit. Its presence brought comfort to those grieving, a living connection to the life that had been lost. The soldier observed how the dog's behavior inspired others to reflect on loyalty, courage, and love. It was a powerful reminder that grief and memory could take many forms, and that the impact of a life could be felt in unexpected ways. The soldier began to see his role not only as a caretaker of the dog, but also as a guardian of the veteran's legacy, ensuring that the lessons of loyalty and devotion were shared and remembered. As weeks passed, the soldier started documenting the dog's behavior and their experiences together. Each story, each memory, each reaction of the dog seemed to hold meaning. At times, the dog would pause in silence, eyes fixed on a corner of the room, ears alert, and the soldier would feel a presence, a reminder of the veteran's spirit lingering in the space they had shared. He began to understand that these moments were not coincidences but signs of the enduring bond between human and animal, a bond that could not be broken by death. The dog was teaching him to see beyond the surface, to appreciate the quiet, profound ways in which loyalty and love manifest. One day, the soldier brought the dog to a quiet hill overlooking the town. The dog ran freely, sniffing, exploring, and occasionally glancing back to ensure the soldier was following. They sat together at the top of the hill, watching the sun cast long shadows across the fields. The soldier spoke softly, recounting the veteran's stories, the lessons learned, and the moments of courage that had defined their service. The dog remained calm, attentive, and even seemed to respond in subtle ways. A tilt of the head, a gentle nudge, a soft whine. The soldier realized that the dog was more than a companion. It was a guide, a bridge to understanding a life that had left a lasting mark. The bond between the soldier and the dog grew stronger with each passing day. They shared routines, memories, and moments of quiet reflection. The dog began to show signs of healing, though it still carried the weight of grief. The soldier understood that this healing was not about forgetting, but about honoring, remembering, and continuing the legacy of the veteran. The dog's loyalty and awareness were extraordinary, a testament to the depth of connection that could exist between a human and an animal. The soldier felt privileged to witness it, to learn from it, and to be a part of this ongoing story of love, loss, and devotion. In the evenings, as they sat together, the soldier often reflected on the howl at the funeral. It was a sound that had pierced the silence, reaching into the hearts of all who had heard it. Now, as he sat with the dog, he understood it better, not as a simple cry of grief, but as an expression of recognition, respect, and farewell. The dog's presence was a reminder that loyalty and love do not end with death, and that the bonds formed in life can continue in powerful and meaningful ways. The soldier knew that this understanding would stay with him forever, shaping how he saw loyalty, courage, and the quiet strength of living beings who share their lives with others. The days grew longer, and the young soldier found himself settling into a routine with the dog. Every morning they would walk along the same quiet streets, past familiar buildings and through parks where the veteran had once taken the dog. Each step seemed to bring memories to life, as if the spaces themselves were imbued with the presence of the man they had both loved. The dog, once withdrawn and restless, began to relax slightly, though its eyes remained filled with a quiet sadness that never fully left. The soldier understood that grief had no timeline, and that healing did not mean forgetting. Instead, it was about learning to live with the absence, carrying the memories forward, and finding new ways to honor the bond that had been lost. One afternoon, as the soldier and the dog walked through the park, the dog suddenly stopped, ears alert and body tense. It stared at a cluster of bushes, growling softly. The soldier approached cautiously, unsure of what had captured the dog's attention. There was nothing to see, no person, no animal, no sign of danger. Yet the dog's reaction was unmistakable, a silent warning, a reminder of its deep awareness. The soldier knelt beside the dog, gently placing his hand on its back and whispered, reassuring it. The dog relaxed slightly, but the soldier could feel that it had sensed something beyond the ordinary, something that humans could not easily perceive. He realized that the dog's abilities went beyond physical senses. It had an intuition, a deep understanding of the world shaped by years of service alongside the veteran. Over the following weeks, the soldier began to notice patterns in the dog's behavior. It would return to certain spots with purpose, pause at locations that seemed insignificant to the human eye, and exhibit behaviors that hinted at memories and emotions tied to the veteran. The soldier started documenting these moments, not just for himself, but as a way to honor the veteran's life. Each memory became a story, each action of the dog a reminder of the bond they had shared. He began to see the dog not just as an animal, but as a living testament to loyalty, courage, and love. It carried the veteran's presence with it, offering silent lessons in devotion and remembrance. One evening, the soldier and the dog visited the veteran's favorite lookout point, a quiet hill where the sun set over the town. The dog ran ahead, sniffing and exploring, then returned to sit beside the soldier. They watched the sky change colors, the world bathed in warm, fading light. The soldier spoke softly, recounting stories of bravery, the quiet moments of reflection, and the laughter that had filled their missions. The dog listened attentively, its head resting on the soldier's knee at times, eyes focused as if absorbing every word. The soldier realized that these moments were teaching him more than just memories. They were lessons in resilience, in honoring life, and in understanding that grief and love could coexist. The soldier began introducing the dog to others in the community, explaining its significance and the extraordinary bond it had shared with the veteran. Neighbors and friends would watch in awe as the dog demonstrated remarkable intelligence, responding to subtle commands, recognizing familiar places, and reacting in ways that showed deep awareness. Some people commented on how the dog seemed to embody the spirit of the veteran, carrying his presence in its actions and demeanor. The soldier felt a sense of responsibility, knowing that by sharing the dog's story, he was keeping the veteran's memory alive. It became clear that the dog's grief was not just personal. It was a bridge to help others understand the depth of loyalty and love that had defined the veteran's life. One rainy afternoon, the soldier found himself sitting in the veteran's home with the dog at his side. The rain tapped softly against the windows, creating a calm rhythm that filled the room. The dog lay close, occasionally nudging the soldier's hand, seeking reassurance and offering comfort. The soldier spoke quietly, sharing stories of missions, training, and moments of courage that had defined their service. The dog responded in subtle ways, lifting its head, tilting its ears, or letting out a soft whine at points that seemed significant. It was as if the dog was not only mourning the veteran, but also helping the soldier process his own grief, guiding him through memories and emotions that were sometimes difficult to face alone. As weeks turned into months, the soldier noticed the dog becoming more at ease, though the sadness in its eyes never fully disappeared. He understood that the dog's bond with the veteran was eternal, that some connections were too deep to fade completely. Yet, there was a sense of peace beginning to settle over the dog, a quiet acceptance of the loss, tempered by the presence of the soldier who had stepped into the role of companion and guardian. The soldier felt a profound respect for the dog, recognizing that its loyalty and devotion were qualities that transcended species and reflected the true meaning of love and friendship. The priest, who had been deeply affected by the funeral, reached out occasionally to the soldier. They would sit together, discussing the veteran's life, the dog's remarkable behavior, and the lessons that could be drawn from this extraordinary bond. The priest admitted that he had been shaken by the dog's howl, and over time he had come to see it not just as grief, but as a profound acknowledgement of a life well lived. The soldier and the priest shared a mutual understanding that some bonds are beyond explanation, that loyalty and love can manifest in ways that defy human comprehension, and that the presence of the dog served as a living testament to these truths. One day, the soldier brought the dog to a small memorial service organized by the local community to honor the veteran. People gathered to share stories, to remember, and to celebrate a life marked by courage and dedication. The dog sat quietly near the front, attentive and alert, its eyes reflecting the collective respect and admiration of those present. When the soldier spoke about the veteran, recounting acts of bravery and moments of compassion, the dog responded with subtle gestures, nudging the soldier, tilting its head or letting out a soft whine at poignant moments. The crowd watched in amazement, recognizing the dog's awareness and its deep connection to the veteran's legacy. The soldier realized that through the dog, the veteran's story continued to inspire and teach. The dog became a symbol of loyalty and courage, a reminder that the bonds we form can transcend time and even life itself. People in the community began to approach the soldier, asking to meet the dog, to hear stories, and to understand the extraordinary connection that had existed between man and animal. Each encounter reinforced the soldier's understanding that grief, love, and loyalty were not confined to human experiences alone, and that the dog's presence was a gift to everyone who knew the veteran. Even in quiet, solitary moments, the soldier and the dog shared a sense of understanding that words could not capture. They would sit together by the fire or on the porch watching the world, and in those moments the soldier felt the presence of the veteran as strongly as ever. The dog's behavior, its gestures, and its attentive nature served as reminders of the bond that had shaped their lives. The soldier realized that the dog was not only a companion, but also a guide, helping him navigate grief, honor memory, and understand the depth of love and loyalty that could exist between beings. As the season changed and the landscape transformed, the soldier and the dog continued their routine, walking, exploring, and sharing memories. The dog's grief, though softened, remained a testament to the life it had shared with the veteran. The soldier understood that this grief was sacred, a living connection to the past and a guide for the future. He learned to listen to the dog, to understand its signals, and to recognize the quiet ways in which it communicated wisdom and emotion. In every action, the dog reminded him of the power of loyalty, courage, and devotion, and the profound impact of a bond that could never be broken by death.